sleepers this week. The first guy is Dustin Hopkins of the Washington football team. In the last few weeks, Hopkins, he's been playing pretty well and scoring some good fantasy points. Last week, Hopkins, 10 fantasy points in Detroit with a 36-yarder and a 44-yarder and 3 extra points made. And also another 10-point game in Week 9 versus the Giants with 2 40-yarders and 2 PATs. So Hopkins this week, he's got a good kicker matchup versus a Cincinnati team that gives up the most fantasy points to kickers. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Hopkins get double-digit fantasy points for the third straight week. So Hopkins, he's available in 100% of leagues universal. And if you need a kicker that could get you some good points and possibly double digits, Hopkins, he's not a bad guy to get. The next guy is Dan Bailey. A lot of guys from this Dallas and Viking game I like this weekend. And Dan Bailey versus former team, you know he's going to want to prove them wrong. That's why they got rid of him a few years ago. And Bailey finally had a good game versus Chicago with 8 fantasy points. This guy, he's barely attempted many field goals the last few weeks because Dalvin Cook just keeps scoring touchdowns. But this week versus Dallas, there's going to be a lot of chances and opportunities and field goal tries, I believe, in this one for Dan Bailey and the Minnesota Vikings. So Bailey, he's available also in 73% of fantasy leagues. You could go out there, get him right now, and put him in your starting lineup, and he could give you a sleeper type of performance at the kicker position. And the third and final guy is Randy Bullock of the Cincinnati Bengals. Bullock, he had some monster fantasy games early in the year with double-digit fantasy points kicking in his first 4 games of the season. Then he fell off a little, and now he's only owned in 15% of leagues, so he's available also in 85% of fantasy leagues. He's got a good matchup versus Washington this week, who gives up the 13th most fantasy points to kickers. And this game, I think, could be a mini shootout. We could see a lot of field goals as well in this one. Just the weather in Washington, who knows how it's going to be. If the climate's good and there's no wetness or wind, I think Randy Bullock could have a good game this week versus the Washington football team. So that's 3 kickers I have as sleepers going into Week 11.